All right, 8-3, finding angles in triangles. So when you get into geometry, there are some things that just are, and even if you don't necessarily understand them 100%, you can just assume that they are always true. So one of those things is that any triangle, all the angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. Okay? So that is always the case. I'm going to add to that a little bit that on a straight line, it is also equal to 180 degrees. Okay, so if you take a straight line and you split it in two, those two angles would add up to 180 degrees. Okay, so for all of these, you're simply adding up the angles that you do know to find the one that you don't know. So you are going to have 180 minus 25 and 35. So in this case, 25 plus 35 is 60. So that missing angle T equals 120 degrees. Okay? For example 2. Okay, now you're going to find all of these angles. Okay, so you're going to start with the triangle on the left. So for these two angles, we have a total of 148 degrees. Then I'm going to subtract that from 180. So 180 minus 48 would give us 32 degrees. So angle 1 equals 32 degrees. Now, something you haven't learned yet, but I'm going to tell you, these angles that are right across from each other are called vertical angles. And those angles are equal. Okay? So if you know that angle 1 is 32 degrees and angle 2 is vertical and the same, then angle 2 is also going to equal 32 degrees. So now you know that this is 32. Now in order to find angle 3, scooch this over just a little bit. So angle 3 is going to equal 180 minus the sum of 108 and 32. So 180, 108 and 32 would be 140. So angle 3 is going to equal 40 degrees. Okay, and there's your angles. All right, let's move on down to your exercises down below. Okay, so for the first one, we can add up the two angles that we do have. So we have 90 plus 62 is going to give us 152. Then I'm going to subtract that from 180. So that remaining angle is going to be, angle 1 is going to equal 28 degrees. Okay. You should always be able to go back and double check by adding up those three angles. 28 plus 62 is 90, plus another 90 is 180. So we know we got that right. Okay. Number 2, in geometry, when you have things marked with the same indicator, so for example, this and this, that tells you that those angles are congruent. Okay. Sometimes you'll see them like this, sometimes like this, and it shows you congruent, which means the same. Okay, angles or sides. So this tells us that this is 30 degrees. So total in my triangle, I have 180 degrees. I know that I'm going to subtract the two angles that I already know, which are 30 and 30. So I have 180 minus 60. So angle 1 equals 120 degrees. Okay. All right, moving on to number 3. Sometimes it's easier to separate these triangles to figure out what you got going on, but not always. So remember when I talked about on a straight line, you have 180 degrees. So this is a right angle, which I know is 90 degrees, which means this side must also be a right angle. Okay, so angle 1 is going to be 180 minus 60 minus 90, the two angles that I know. So that's going to be 180 minus 150. So angle 1 is going to equal 30 degrees. Now, a geometry rule you will learn at some point is that when you split an angle like that, we call that a perpendicular bisector. It means you just cut it in half. These two angles are going to be the same, which in turn makes these two angles the same. So if we do that by addition, angle 2 should be 180 minus 30 minus 90, which is 180 minus 120. So angle 2 equals 60 degrees. Okay. And example number 4. Okay, so your vertical angles are going to come into play again here. So 1 and 2 are going to be congruent. Your vertical angles directly across from each other, and they're going to be equal. Okay, so angle 1 is going to be 180 minus 66 minus 58. 180. 66 and 58 put together would be 124. So angle 1 is going to equal 56 degrees. So this is 56 degrees, which means angle 2 is 56 degrees. Now in order to find angle 3, I should be able to have 180 minus 56 minus 50. So 180 minus 106 is going to give us the remaining value of 74 degrees. A couple more examples down at the bottom. Here's an example where you really want to look at the triangles separately. Okay, so again, because this down at the bottom is a right angle, I know that the other side of that also has to be a right angle. So angle 1 is going to equal 180 minus 90 minus 60, which is going to give us 30 degrees. So this part of it is 30 degrees. So now this whole angle put together, angle 1 plus 2, well, that makes a right angle when we put them together. Angle 1, that part of it is 30 degrees. So angle 2 has to be 60 degrees. And if I look at this triangle on the other side, that would make sense because 60 plus 90 plus 30 does equal 180, which is what I know the measurement has to be for every triangle. Okay. All right. And lastly, super easy. Add up 152 plus 20, and I get 172. Then all I have to do is subtract 180 minus 172. So angle 1 equals 8 degrees. Good job. That's it.